The first warning was not a flare. It was not a gunshot. It was not a frightened courier crashing through a door. It was an empty square on a radio log. February 1945, Nancy, France. Inside a requisitioned lycée with cracked plaster walls and blackout curtains nailed over the windows, the Third Army Intelligence Annex was drowning in paper. Maps covered the tables, pins covered the maps, and beside a weak green lamp, a WAC technical sergeant named Evelyn Rowe stared at one blank box as if it had started breathing. For 6 nights, one German call sign had appeared at the same hour. Same band, same operator rhythm, same short burst before midnight. Then it vanished. Not faded, not jammed, not moved to another frequency, vanished. To most of the men in that room, silence meant retreat. To Evelyn Rowe, silence meant a unit had stopped talking because it was about to move. She checked the direction-finding plots. She checked the prisoner summaries. She checked the fuel receipts taken from a captured rail office. 3 scraps of evidence from 3 different places all pointed to the same forest road east of the Saar. By dawn, an American infantry regiment would be sleeping in front of it. And if the anti-tank guns did not move before nightfall, those men would wake up under German tracks. Evelyn gathered the sheets under one arm and walked toward the desk of Major Russell Brandt. That was where the warning died. Brandt did not look like a man who made mistakes. His boots shone, even in February mud. His collar point sat sharp enough to draw blood. He had the still, polished face of an officer who believed the Army worked best when every person stayed in the place assigned to them. And to him, Evelyn Rowe's assigned place was not analysis. It was typing, sorting, carrying, making the machine look neat. She placed the overlay on his desk. "Major, the Capel call sign dropped off the net last night. Direction finding puts its last fix near the Forbach Road. Fuel movement from Saarbrücken lines up with it. Prisoner reports mention armor pulled under tree cover." Brandt kept signing his morning brief. Evelyn waited until the pen stopped. "Sir, they are not falling back, they are staging." Brandt lifted his eyes. "Your job is to process intercepts, Sergeant. My job is to decide what they mean." "Then decide this one fast." The room went still around them. A typewriter stopped in the middle of a word. Evelyn pointed to the acetate. "These 4 fixes are not random. The missing call sign is the hinge. The Germans are closing radio discipline before a night thrust. The 214th is sitting in a quiet sector because we told them it was quiet. It is not." Brandt smiled without warmth. "A quiet sector that every aerial photo in this office says is empty. Because they are under the canopy during daylight. Or because they are gone. Sir, they are not gone." Brandt leaned back. The chair creaked under him. "Sergeant Rowe, you have spent too many nights listening to static. You are turning gaps into ghosts." Evelyn's hand tightened on the edge of the desk. "No, Major. A gap is data when everything around it still has a pattern." That was the wrong answer. Not because it was false, because it came from her. Brandt stood. He was not shouting, which made it worse. "I will not walk into the commanding general's briefing and tell him that the entire right flank must shift because a WAC clerk found poetry in a blank box." The words landed hard. Evelyn looked at the overlay, then at the wastebasket beside his desk. "Men will die if this disappears." Brandt picked up her acetate sheet. He held it for 1 second, long enough for the green lamp to shine through the grease pencil marks. Then he dropped it into the basket. "Return to your station." That afternoon, Brandt briefed the sector as stable. No armor concentration. No imminent thrust. German forces withdrawing toward the Rhine. Hold current anti-tank positions. The staff accepted it because it sounded like the war everyone wanted to be fighting. A collapsing enemy, a straight road east, one more push. By 2300 hours, snow started tapping against the lycée windows. By midnight, the missing German call sign returned. But now it was no longer alone. At 03:17, the first field telephone rang. At 03:24, a second one rang. At 03:31, the operations room heard a voice from the line, half buried under shell noise, saying the words no intelligence officer ever wants to hear. Armor in the trees. The German attack came exactly through the road Evelyn had marked. Not with a grand offensive, not with the strength to change the war, with just enough tanks, assault guns, and panicked infantry to tear open a sleeping regiment. The 214th had its heavy guns too far back. The forward companies had been told the sector was safe enough to rest. Men who had survived Normandy, Metz, and the Bulge found themselves firing rifles at steel shapes moving between black pines. By sunrise, one battalion command post had been overrun. 2 anti-tank crews were gone before they ever got their guns unlimbered. The medical station behind the ridge ran out of plasma before breakfast. And in Nancy, Major Russell Brant stood in front of a wall map, repeating the same sentence to anyone who looked at him. No one could have known. Evelyn Rowe said nothing. She only pulled a carbon copy from the bottom drawer of her desk, because she had learned a long time ago that when men threw away your work, you kept another copy. The staff heard the cars before they saw him. 2 jeeps came hard through the courtyard. A door slammed. Boots hit the wet stone steps. Then General George S. Patton walked into the intelligence annex with his helmet still damp from the morning road. He did not make an entrance for theater. He made one because speed was a weapon to him, and he had just spent that speed reaching a hospital full of men who should not have been there. The room stiffened. Patton crossed it without greeting anyone. His face was red from the cold. His riding crop was tucked under one arm. His eyes were fixed on Major Brant. "Saw the 214th this morning," Patton said. His voice was low. "Not on a map. In beds, on stretchers, in pieces." Nobody moved. Patton placed 2 documents on Brant's desk. One was Brant's signed morning estimate. The other was Evelyn's carbon copy, with her handwriting in the margins and the blank radio square circled twice. Patton tapped the copy. "Who made this analysis?" Brant's mouth opened once before any sound came out. "Sergeant Rowe prepared the raw notes, General." Patton turned his head. "That is not what I asked." Brant swallowed. "Sergeant Rowe wrote that estimate." "And who rejected it?" Brant stared at the desk. "I did." Patton's finger moved to Brant's report. "This one says the enemy was withdrawing." "Yes, sir." "This one says the enemy was staging." "Yes, sir." This one was right. Brant said nothing. The clock on the wall ticked through 3 seconds that seemed to fill the whole building. Then Patton asked the only question that mattered. "Why was I not shown the right one?" Brant straightened. He tried to recover the shape of himself. "General, I did not believe the source had the combat judgment required for a command-level briefing." The air changed. Not louder, colder. Patton looked toward the back tables where the WAC analysts sat with their headphones, pencils, and ash-gray faces. Then he looked back at Brant. "The source? Sir, Sergeant Rowe is efficient with figures, but she has no line experience. I judged the conclusion speculative." Patton stepped closer. "Speculative." He picked up the carbon copy and read from it. "Missing call sign. 4 direction-finding fixes. Fuel transport captured from Saarbrücken. Prisoner mention of night armor movement. Tree cover concealment." He lowered the page. That is not speculation, Major. That is intelligence. Brant's jaw tightened. With respect, General, I believed it was unsafe to let a rear area WAC overrule field judgment. The room became so quiet that Evelyn could hear the snow melt off Patton's coat and drop onto the floor. Patton did not explode. That was what made the moment frightening. He spoke carefully, as if he wanted every word to survive the war. You were not asked to let anyone overrule field judgment. You were asked to report the enemy. The enemy, Major, not your opinion of the hand that drew the arrow. Brant's face drained. Patton lifted Brant's report. This paper told tired men they could sleep. That paper told us where the blow was coming. You chose the paper that protected your pride. He turned toward Evelyn. Sergeant Rowe. Evelyn stepped forward. Her legs felt steady until she realized they were not. Yes, General. Did you have another copy? Yes, sir. Why? She looked at Brant, then at Patton. Because this was not the first time my work failed to reach the table. The sentence landed harder than an accusation. Patton's eyes moved back to Brant. How many times? Brant said nothing. Evelyn answered instead. Twice before, sir. Once on fuel traffic near Bitch. Once on a withdrawal pattern west of Kaiserslautern. Patton took that in, not as gossip, as a broken system. Then he gave the order. Major Brant, you are relieved from intelligence duties effective this minute. Brant blinked. General, this minute. Your new assignment is casualty records at the replacement depot. You will process the names of the men whose warnings you failed to carry. You will do it until I decide the Army has found a place where your judgment cannot kill anyone. Brant's polished face collapsed by inches. Patton turned to a captain near the door. Clear that desk. The captain hesitated only half a second. Then two clerks stepped forward and removed Brant's briefcase, his sharpened pencils, his brass nameplate, the framed academy photograph he kept angled toward visitors. The nameplate hit the floor and rang once. Patton pointed at the empty chair. Sergeant Rowe, sit. Evelyn did not move. Not at first. For almost 2 years, she had worked at side tables, back tables, borrowed corners, anywhere close enough to the facts and far enough from the authority. Now every officer in the room was watching her cross the floor. She sat at Brant's desk. The chair was too high. The blotter was clean. The map light hummed above her hands. Patton placed the carbon copy in front of her. From now on, your estimates come directly to my night brief. If a major, colonel, or general dislikes that, he may take it up with me after he has learned to be right. A few men in the room looked down, not out of shame alone, out of recalculation, because the war had just changed shape in front of them. Not the war outside, the one inside the headquarters. For the first time, the person who had seen the pattern was sitting where the pattern could not be buried. Brant left the room between two MPs with his cap in his hand. He did not look at Evelyn. He looked at the floor, as if the answers might be easier there. At the replacement depot, his new office had no maps, no green lamp, no briefings, only forms, names, units, wounds, next of kin. The same columns repeated day after day until every mistake in the chain of command became a line of ink. Men from the 214th passed through that depot with bandaged faces and empty sleeves. Some knew who he was. Most did not. That was worse, because their silence did not forgive him. It simply proved he had never been the center of the story. Evelyn Rowe remained with Third Army through the spring. She did not become famous. No newspaper put her on the front page. No parade paused to point at the woman whose blank square had been right. But inside that annex, procedures changed. Raw dissenting estimates could no longer be filtered out by one man's pride. Direction-finding gaps were flagged before they were dismissed. Captured logistics records were cross-checked against radio silence before any sector was called quiet. Within weeks, Evelyn's morning sheets helped identify 3 withdrawal corridors, 2 concealed artillery concentrations, and 1 armor pocket that might have surprised a forward regiment if the old system had still been in place. That was the real victory. Not that Patton humiliated a major. The Army had plenty of humiliations. Most of them solved nothing. The victory was that a warning found a path to power before it became a casualty list. Years later, Evelyn Rowe went home with no desire to turn the war into a story about herself. She kept a small envelope in a desk drawer. Inside it was a cracked acetate overlay with a grease pencil circle around one blank square. To anyone else, it looked like damaged office trash. To her, it was the proof of a lesson the Army had bought with blood. Silence is not always absence. Sometimes silence is the loudest thing on the map. And the most dangerous officer in a headquarters is not the one who lacks information. It is the one who has the truth in his hands and throws it away because he cannot stand who found it. The enemy crossed the forest road before dawn. But the first breach happened hours earlier, at a desk, when pride decided that a blank square could not outrank a polished boot. The map had not failed. The men around it had.